Hello, everyone. My name is Trayce Riley, and I'm a senior manager with the Unity Prayer Ministry. This morning, I'm delighted to be your prayer partner during our Unity Prayer service offered every weekday at 11 a.m. Central. Together, we join in prayer with Silent Unity Prayer Associates who are holding vigil and responding to your prayer requests via phone calls, emails, and letters. I invite you to add your prayer request in the comments section below, and Silent Unity will hold them in vigil for 30 days of continuous prayer. So now let us pray. Breathing deeply and opening our hearts, we center ourselves in God, our source of spiritual strength. We turn from outer circumstances and enter the sanctuary of silence within, where the peace, the power, and the presence of God surrounds and enfolds us completely, filling us with divine love. Together in prayer, we draw upon the power of our faith that can move mountains. We give thanks for the spiritual resource of faith, and we affirm these truths. Faith empowers us to look within and cast off limiting thoughts and beliefs. In faith, we expand our thinking to imagine new possibilities and conceive creative choices. Reminded of our own spiritual strength and power, we are perceptive, we are expectant, and we are assured of our good. The power of faith propels us into a new territory of unlimited potential where nothing is impossible with God. Faith is the anchor that holds us fast, even amidst dire circumstances. In faith, we move from fear to power and love as we open to divine guidance. Filled with faith, we trust our intuitive knowing, and our insight and understanding expands. Faith declares that only good will unfold, and it moves us to act to make it so. We know that by faith we are greater than the conditions we face and the experiences we encounter. We are strong and unwavering. Challenges do not discourage us. In prayer, we activate our power of faith so that we speak, move, and act with assurance. Though our faith may be the size of a mustard seed, the mountain shrinks before us, and the path is made clear. We're deeply grateful for the power of faith that lifts our hearts, strengthens our resolve, moves our hands, and guides our feet. Fueled by faith, we move mountains. With great joy, we hold this vision and affirm these thoughts, seeing them manifest in our lives becoming real and true. We now release and let go, knowing that all things are whole, perfect, and complete. For this and so much more, we give thanks, declaring it is so, and so it is. As we close, please join me in reciting the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, wherever I am, God is, and all is well.
And so it is. Thank you for that wonderful time in prayer, Trayce. And I want to welcome everyone for our panel discussion. My name is Reverend Maggie Alderman, and I am honored to serve as a senior manager also for the prayer ministry. And I am joined by our panelists this morning, depending wherever you are. Reverend Jacquie Fernández, Senior Minister of Unity Overland Park. Reverend Chris Jackson, a Legacy Unity Minister and now at large, and we're so glad to have you here, Chris. And Reverend Kathy Beasley, first time we're getting to see you this World Day of Prayer. Kathy and I serve as senior managers for Silent Unity, and I am so grateful to see your bright and shining face and be here with us today. Welcome, everybody. For those of you that are following along with our programming that's available through our website at unity.org, today we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into our theme and following along with our reflection questions that are published and made available for you. And we invite you to consider those as well as we continue through our 24-hour prayer cycle. One bit of housekeeping, I'm sure you're going to ask, is this being recorded and can I find it later? Yes and yes. After we conclude our World Day of Prayer activities this evening, you'll be sent the links to our recorded content so you can revisit that time and time again and share with your friends, family, and congregations. And we hope you'll choose to do so. So our theme this year is Fueled by Faith, I Can Move Mountains. What a positive, bold affirmation, and one I know that all of us strive to live by. I'm going to start with our first question, and I'm going to look to you, Reverend Jacquie. Last night, your talk was super awesome. You had such energy around the gospel from Matthew, and that being that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. We all had a good chuckle, I'm sure, when you said, says the guy who never moved a mountain.
I mean, seriously.
Seriously, though.
It was a perfect teaching moment.
Right. Yeah. Could you
for
demonstrate?
Jesus? I mean.
So my question is, and I'd like for all of you to consider this because I'm sure this is going to generate some discussion, is how has faith empowered and emboldened your thinking? And Reverend Jacquie, when has it, faith that is, moved you from a time of uncertainty to audacity in the face of seemingly unsurmountable circumstances?
It's a great question. You know, what I love about our teachings with faith as a power, as one of the 12 powers, is that it's a reminder that we always have it. So even when we feel like we don't, we always have that faith. And what I have learned through my life is that faith gives birth to imagination. Faith gives birth to strength, which is endurance. Faith gives birth to life. I just returned from the Andes Mountains. I took a solo trip to Peru. And you want to talk about audacity? The number of trees I saw growing out of rock with no soil within hundreds of feet. You know, what a beautiful, magnificent reflection of the power of life. And that is faith. So for me personally, having come through trials and tribulations and having the audacity to know that even faith as small as a mustard seed will give birth to life-giving thoughts in my life and in my being. You know, I'm reminded that when you see someone else going through hard times, we admire them. We're inspired by them. We think, wow, they're really getting through this. But when I am going through a difficult time, I feel myself trembling. I feel my doubt. I feel my fear. And so through the power of imagination, if I can take myself outside of my body and imagine that I'm watching myself go through something, and I can see, wow, you're using every resource you have. You're using every last drop, ounce, morsel, and grain of mustard seed of faith that you have to get through this. And look at you doing it. Because if I stay in my body and I feel that I am depleted and that I don't have enough strength to get through this, that I don't have the audacity to move through whatever I'm moving through, then I can give way to those fear thoughts. So that's what my real growth has been to, consider how I hold someone else when they might be feeling that same way, but I'm entirely inspired and moved by the power of life and faith and imagination and strength in other people. So thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you for your answer. I love the example. We've all seen life coming up out of a crack in cement, but to see those trees coming through where there is no seemable feeding life force, that reminds me of the quote that we are, also provided for us watching online. It's unlocking the great spiritual machinery. When there seems to be nothing feeding us, it is the source within us that feeds ourselves forward. So, Reverend Kathy or Reverend Chris, have you got any thoughts you'd like to add about that great spiritual machinery and activating our faith through trials and tribulations?
I do.
Great.
Jacquie, thank you for the beautiful setup of that about trees growing out of rocks. When I consider, how his faith empowered and emboldened my thinking and my living, it takes me back to the Baptist Methodist churches of my youth. And every now and then there'd be a guest that'd come through, and at some point in the message, they'd be like, we got to keep the faith. And so for me, I didn't know if we kept it in the back of the refrigerator next to that questionable bowl, or if it's in the back corner of the closet next to the bag that says, what was I thinking? Or is it in the garage with the seasonal decor? Where do we keep it? And because I can be real literal about things. And what I started to realize is that not only do I have faith, it's not given to us in a quantity or in a measure. And I don't think we can run out of it, that we got to go to the online service and have it delivered to our doorstep. What I started to look at faith as an activity. Faithing, I added the suffix ing, which means it now brings it into the activity of my living, my breathing, my laughing, my crying, my lying, whatever it is that I am doing in that moment. And that's when I could get to the power that you spoke about, the power of strength and resilience. Because if anybody says, Beasley, what are you doing? I'm faithing. Beasley, where you been? Faithing. It's kind of like going fishing. If fishing is fishing and faithing is faithing. But I believe that when we find ourselves in the activity of faithing, that it stirs up that resilience that's naturally within each one of us. And it allows us to rediscover that mustard seed that we have been given and that we are for the world. So when I think about that, I just kind of go, I'm inspired by faith, and I'm like the trees out in the Andes Mountains. I'm breaking through whatever that inanimate solid surface is, and I'm doing it because I'm faithful.
Amen. Thank you. Well, I'm going to lead to the next question, and Chris, I'm going to give it to you as a follow-up to this. So Jacquie and Reverend Kathy have talked about the activity and how it gets stirred to life and witnessing that. Chris, what would you say to someone new to Unity or someone within Unity who is going through a struggle, going through a trial in their life? We all evolve through different seasons of growth and evolution. And though we don't ever run out of faith, sometimes it feels like it's a little far away. How would you instruct them, or what guidance would you give them to re-energizing and activating that faith and putting us back on the path of the knowing of the allness and the goodness that's unfolding?
Thank you for the question. What I would say is it comes down, I believe, to what we define ourselves to be. And so many of us, we've grown up in this world where we've been told what we are by outside, often well-intentioned, but perhaps not always accurate authorities. So we have a very limited idea of ourselves, of life, and of God.
Mhm.
When that is examined within us, and we really ask ourselves, what do I believe I am? What do I believe you are? What do I believe this is that's going on here? As we begin to do that, and as we access what I love in unity we refer to as our divine nature, we start to get some really different answers from what the world has given us in our human domestication, as Don Miguel Ruiz refers to it as. We start to realize we're not lacking in any way. We've been talking about how faith is always present, but sometimes we're not able to access it. Well, if we can reconsider the identity that we've claimed for ourselves and begin to really recognize the truth of what we are, which is to me what the unity teaching is all about, that we are children of God. And, come on, how does it get any better than that? We're children of God. As we do this, we begin to then open up, as the Fillmores taught, the co-founders of Unity, in these innate 12 powers within us, the faith that is within us. So my encouragement would be to invite an individual to see any challenge or difficulty as a God-given opportunity to reconsider what they've defined themselves to be, and to begin to live out of a new awareness of all the strength, all the power, all the faith, all the glory, all the beauty that's within us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So Reverend Kathy or Reverend Jacquie, I loved your description, faithing as an activity, right? So what does faithing look like to you? How do you apply that in your personal lives and in your spiritual growth? Jacquie, would you share?
Yeah, that's great. I love that too. Faithing, faith as a verb, it's taking that next step, when you don't see the staircase, right?
Uh-huh.
And, for me, that's what it is trusting that power of faith. If, as, Chris said so beautifully, that if I trust my divine nature, if I know who I am, then it makes it a whole lot easier. So being able to take a moment, a pause, even in the midst of deep pain, to remember that and to allow, the thing is that when we are faithing, for me, it doesn't mean that all of the fear thoughts go away. I carry that with me. I can bring that with me. Now, the burden will naturally lighten the more I move my feet, the more I move my thoughts, the more I move myself into that knowing of who I am, and into that power of faith, but not always as fast as I want those fear thoughts to go away, not always as completely. I would like all of those fear thoughts to go away. Sometimes you're crossing the finish line, and you're still carrying some of that crud with us. And so I think part of it too is knowing that, just when I described that, when you're watching someone else who may be feeling completely broken down and depleted, but you're looking at them like, oh my gosh, look what they're accomplishing, to remember that it might not feel great. And so to not go into that sort of Pollyanna idealism of what it means to be deeply spiritual, what it means to be a person of deep faith and faithingness, that we can, without shame and without spiritual failing, carry with us our fear of failure, our fear of having an undesirable outcome. So I'm thinking of, health issues, that we can walk through something with deep and great faith, and in that activity of faith and in the knowing of who we are, and not expect it to feel super great. And that's, to me, is really important to remember. Yeah. Because if I can remember that it can come with me, then I don't have to focus on it. That's just some baggage I'm bringing along for the ride. But what I can focus on is, who am I? What am I doing here? And am I walking in the knowing of who I am and what is mine to do? Yeah.
It sounds a lot like do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, be scared. Yes, in pain. Yes, unknowing. Yeah. Do it anyway. Keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going, everyone.
And be super compassionate and loving toward oneself in that process. Jacquie, thank you, because I really do think sometimes in especially in unity, we can become a little overly optimistic in terms of our ability to just embrace ourselves wherever we are, whatever the experiences we're going through, whatever we're feeling.
Yes.
Very good point. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So Reverend Kathy, the coiner of the phrase faithing for this conversation. And I think we're all taking that soundbite with us for the rest of World Day of Prayer and wherever we are. What does faithing, the activity of stirring that faith to life, look like for you?
When we look at things in the physical and the natural, we look at mountains. Jackie just came back from the Andes Mountains. We got Rocky Mountains, Appalachian Mountains. Mountains got a name. And what I've learned to do is when I am standing at the base of whatever that mountain is in my life, I call that thing by name. Because I needed to have, I need to get its attention so that I can focus my intention. And Jackie, thank you for normalizing the idea that fear doesn't go away. I mean, it's like the crumbs down in the bottom of your bag, you know they're there. It's like the dust on your sandals, it's there. It doesn't go away, but what it does is it allows you to shift your attention to the activity of faithing. And when I'm faithing, I'm not fearing because I can freak out with the best of us. And it's not always cute. And so when I am faithing, I stand a little taller. I breathe a little easier. And I'm able to be more fully who I am, where I am in that moment. So for me, I have to call the thing by name because I don't want anything else to get in or whatever's getting ready to come out of me on it. I need that focus, that laser sharp focus of I'm talking to you. Our time together is done. Let me get the door for you. Please don't leave any residual, whatever that is here. Right. And I will not see you later.
Yeah, that reminds me of the quote from Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic, where she said that faith can come along for the ride, but absolutely under no circumstances is it allowed to drive. So we're always having that kind of in our pockets. It's around us, but it is not the thing that we have to. It will try. It'll try and take the wheel. But it sounds like all of you are sharing with us the idea and the activity of know the thing that's trying to take hold and regain control, in what we do, where we direct our thoughts and our energy and our power. And that's a lesson that if we actually master it and learn it, I think we'll be off this plane. Don't you think?
100%.
So one of the things, yeah. Oh, no, please.
Well, I was going to say in the comments, Laura Bennett, I have fears. Through faithing, I am greater than my fears. And if we look at it like that, and just like Kathy's saying, you name it. Well, you name something that's outside of you, but I am the power of faith.
Right.
But I have these other things.
Yes. Yes, and.
I am, my identity is the power of faith.
Yeah. One of the things that I've come to know and identify through my time in Unity is that faith and wisdom are two powers that go really well together. Faith sees us through each of our growth circumstances and informs our spiritual wisdom, meaning that the longer we go through life, the more we know that while this feels like dirt, while I don't know, while I can't see the next step, I know I've been through other tough circumstances and I came through okay, better than okay. So whatever it is that's right here, right now, I will be okay. So that takes me into our next question, and it is wisdom. I'm going to turn to Reverend Chris as our wisdom keeper of the panel. And my question for you, Chris, is how has your faith grown and matured, especially through the cycle of disappointments and heartbreak and tough times? What has that taught you? And how do you view that as your spiritual faith now, as opposed to some arbitrary then?
Well, first of all, I want to echo what you said, because I really do believe that the longer we're engaged in this human situation and the more trials and tribulations that we may have found ourselves in, the lighter our journey becomes in terms of our ability to remain faithful because of what you just said, which is, I've been through this. I thought this was the end of the world. I thought this was the end of civilization or whatever it might be, however overwhelming the fear might seem to have been, say, here I still am. And in every situation in my own personal life, and I'm grateful and humble about this, I can honestly say every trial and tribulation has brought me closer to my understanding of who I am, my understanding of my love and my gratitude for the universe, for God, for the divine. And so I think this is a process. And that was somewhere in the information that was online for today's program. This isn't something that happens overnight. And again, for me, then it comes back to the gentleness, the compassion, the kindness that I can show myself as I'm moving through this journey, one step at a time. And with each experience that life brings, sometimes a little more easily than others, my faith is growing. My confidence in the faith that I have in God is growing through experience. And it's allowed me to reframe what seemingly would be an unfortunate situation in my life when it arrives at my doorstep and say, it's possible for me to see this differently, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how much despair I might find myself in. I have been through these kinds of experiences before, and I know that the way that I choose to see them makes all the difference. So the sooner I can get in there and say, there is possibility, there is potential, there is the ability to grow and to become a person of greater appreciation and love in this world, which to me is what the world needs right now, for each of us to move through this journey, arriving in this place of greater faith and the ability then to be more beautiful extensions of God's love in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you. I love that you touched on, well, you answered the question perfectly and beautifully, and we do evolve every time. Yet, when we come up to that next growth opportunity, we kind of get into the mud of things. And I wonder if you could share, how do you cheer yourself on? How do you get yourself back into a positive state where there's not woe or fear or doubt driving, to re-reference that metaphor? But what is the tool that you reach for, Chris?
The tool that I reach for is prayer, and prayer in the sense of what I was speaking about last night with the three different manners of prayer: the prayer of despair, the prayer for repair, the prayer to be aware. So the prayer becomes, first of all, self-awareness, to become aware of what voice I am listening to. Course in Miracles tells us repeatedly there are two voices, two choices, love and fear. And doing what I can do to, as we've been discussing here, embrace myself as I may be listening to the voice of fear, which is always the voice of doubt, insecurity, panic in some cases, despair, and ask whatever I define my higher nature to be, to guide me through the steps, which to me is the process of religion in someone's life. What steps, what are the practices that I can employ that will move me from an inauthentic understanding of myself to authenticity, to the real divine that is within me? That voice will always come through. The question is, at what point am I able to be attentive enough to hear it, to listen to it, and to have the confidence to follow it?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. Reverend Kathy, I want to turn to you and ask a similar question, because I know that you have broad thoughts on what we know and visualize as conventional prayer and what that looks like. You and I have talked oftentimes about getting out a meditation cushion and sitting in lotus position and getting lost in the silence. But I know you also have many other thoughts and theories around the activity of prayer. So when you're going through a challenge, when you're in another growth cycle, what kind of tools and activity, what does prayer look like for you in those circumstances?
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me talk about this in front of all these people.
I am. You're welcome.
Because when I am going through, the last thing that my body physicality can do is go sit in the corner, wrap myself in Nana's prayer shawl, and rock and hum. I can't do it. It's too much energy. And so for me, prayer starts to take on the shape of things like walking, dancing. I have a small dog who loves to go outside and smell every individual blade of grass. And we live in the country, so it's a lot of grass. And so I go on long walks. I sing. I will hug a tree or stop and have a conversation with the tree. And so for me, prayer takes on whatever it is I need in that moment. I also fancy myself an artist. I'll go out to the garage in all that heat and paint. And what I find is that prayer is moving it from within me to out into the life that I'm living. So whether I dance it out, sing it out, run it out, walk it out, I need it to move. And so I get up out of my quiet prayer corner and fold up Nana's prayer shawl. And I go for a stroll, a run, ride my scooter. My favorite is carpool karaoke. Just turn the music up real loud, make up the words to the song, and let the windows down and just go. All of that is prayer. There was a book we read when we were in school. I think it's by Brother John, Life as Prayer. And so if I am still alive, I'm still praying. And it looks like it needs to look in that moment without being prescriptive.
Amen. Reverend Jacquie, Reverend Jacquie, anything you'd like to add to that as well?
Yeah, I love all of that. The power of prayer and meditation and the communion with the divine, wherever you find yourself, and to be willing to see the presence of God all around you and as an opportunity to commune. It makes me think about my youngest just went off to college, and those fear thoughts are so romantic. Like they lure us, they call to us. And so I found myself, we become like, we love to worry. Yeah. And you might feel resistance to that, but I can say it this way: we are devoted to worry. It is a kind of love affair. And I found that luring coming to me, like, now I have something new to worry about, my child off at college, And so really like noticing that call to me, and how can I shift that as an opportunity to, instead of having a worry thought, of having a prayerful thought of what am I going to send to that child this week, young adult, what am I going to send in this moment right now? And so finding that opportunity to replace that worry or the fear, whatever that negative or undesirable thought that we're holding that is in the way of us really amplifying and using our faith in a way that would bring a desirable outcome, is that's the power of awareness that Christopher talked about. That's the power of prayer that Kathy is describing, of being just like our dogs, willing to just go slowly and to really notice with every step, with every breath, with every thought. What am I doing? Am I faithing this, or am I falling into the lure and romance of worry or fear?
Yeah. I fancy myself a worrywart, indeed. And I'm reminded of the old phrase, if you pray, don't worry. And if you worry, don't pray. And if I'm a minister and I'm a true student, I guess I need to give up my worry beads, and get back into the activity of prayer. One of the suggestions that was offered in the chat was from Julie, and she said that one of the ways that she activates this within her is to read Unity publications. And how true that is. I mean, we have ample supply, that's for sure and certain. And it does tend to ground us, doesn't it? Take us out of that mental cycle of worry, because that is a deliberate thing. It's a deliberate thing that we can also break. And so I love that. It's not a distraction. It's actually a replacement activity. So that's wonderful, Julie. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. And Jacquie, you and I share something. I also have my youngest who just started his first term of college. And that brings us to the understanding and recognition that there's something that we share unknowingly Through the tapestry of spirit, we know we're all one, that's sure. And we're all having our human experience in parallel to one another. So our last question is, what are the ways in which we can join our faith with others in response to communal crisis or collective needs? And a follow-up that I want you to just think on with your answer is there a particular issue that is lying heavy on your heart, but you feel powerless to address alone? Reverend Kathy, I'm going to start with you for this one.
Thank you. It's a great question. I haven't shared this a whole lot outside of my family of choice and origin, but earlier this year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, sitting in this room, in this chair, staring at this screen. And every Unity teaching quote, thought, it just flowed right out of me. And it made room for fear.
Yeah.
So what I found myself doing and joining with others is I called my minister, who called her father, who called a whole bunch of people and asked them to pray. And so for me, faithing, I had to trust and connect to the faith of others. Because there were moments during this year, during treatment, during whatever, that I was doing good to have my eyes on. And so if you asked me how to spell faith, I might have been able to squeak that out. But I was able to rest in the arms of faith of others and connecting and trusting and breathing and believing. And I had this notion about believing. Belief requires our participation. So it wasn't enough just to cast the cares out and not worry about it. I still had to participate. That if we are praying for healing, the power is not in the praying for healing, but it was in the willingness to be healed. Mm-hmm. I had to release all the thoughts in terms of how I described myself and how I saw myself, even how I engage myself today, because I am fully healed, cancer-free. And I had to say that to myself every day until my body said, all right, sis, we get it. Us too. So every cell in my body had to agree. Mm-hmm. And here's the funny thing in our household, my wife is not by any means a lunatic at all. And so in one of my quiet moments where fear came back, because it doesn't really, we don't banish it, it just kind of goes over there and he's quiet. But he got up one day and decided to come over and sit next to me. Put her hand on my shoulder and she said, I know you're worried. I know on some level you're afraid. She said, but we're going to pray like Myrtle. And I had a Scooby-Doo moment, but I couldn't say anything. I was like, and all of these Sundays and all of these messages, she was listening. Uh-huh. Something in her connected to that healing story. Something in her allowed her to faith in that direction. Mm-hmm. And so when there is a communal crisis, that we may gather around that, but there is something about that bonfire of change that gets lit. Mm-hmm. That we're no longer gathered around the crisis. We are gathered around the desired outcome. And I think that becomes our response. I'm not here around the crisis. It's like, what do we want? I feel like I work at a drive-thru. Show up and I'm like, what do you want? There's the menu. We got faith, we got wisdom, we got strength. You want fries with that? You know, it is that sort of living. So it has been a journey of faith and healing. And I'm grateful for the lesson and the blessing that has allowed me the strength to be here today. So I think that joining our faith with others, I love the fact that our organization is called Unity. Mm-hmm. We come together, fully assembled. There's no pieces and parts to be left over. It's all in the mix. And so I'm grateful for that knowing and to be a part of such an organization that teaches and demonstrates the truth that we know.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us and letting everyone hear you testify. Actually, you know, we sometimes can wonder if this stuff really works. And when you have a faith community and a community of loved ones that stand up and hold the high watch for you, that is such a blessing and such a relief, because then you can get busy tending those thoughts and training your body back into wholeness and perfect health. And we're so glad to hear your outcome. Yay!
Yay! You know, and I never gave a concern around who it was that was praying. And I think that's part of the power of silent unity, because we pray with one voice. And people call like it's a drive-through. I need so-and-so and so-and-so. My prayer request is this. And no matter what it is or who it is, we hold that high watch and we raise up that light, first for ourselves and then for all others.
Absolutely. Thank you. Reverend I keep doing that. I'm looking right at you, Jackie, and I'm saying Kathy.
You know, Jackie and I, we do look alike.
I know. It's the hair. It's the hair. Reverend Jackie, what are your thoughts on faith and prayer in response to communal crisis?
That's a great question. I love it because it is, you know, it encompasses the Unity's fifth principle, right? Moving our feet, living our faith, living what we believe, the truth we know. And I love what Reverend Kathy said about, you know, what her wife said. Let's pray like Myrtle. You know, if that's the mantra that we hold to remember in times of trials and tribulations, to pray like Myrtle, we're golden. We are set. In terms of communal issues, you know, it's an election year, so everything is up, and it honestly has been up for quite some time. And I think, you know, what Reverend Kathy just kind of ended with about not asking people. She said, I don't care who was praying. I didn't ask. I gave no attention to that. I think if we're mindful about what we ask of other people in terms of identity, and we just stay connected in our oneness, like, I don't care who you're voting for. I'm not really concerned with where you stand on issues. What I am concerned with is, how do we co-create community? How do we co-create a society that truly serves the highest and best outcome for everyone? And if we can connect at that heart level, because I believe that we mostly want the same things. We want a good life, right? Which means we have our needs met, and that we have a creative and thriving society in which we are all able to live freely, free of discrimination, and able to be supported in what we want to do in the world that contributes to the world. So for me right now, I have a big practice of mindfulness around that, about meeting people face to face, heart to heart, and being in the question of how can we come together to make this moment, this activity, this project, whatever it is, better for all people.
Yes, thank you. That leads to a wonderful follow-up question for you, Reverend Chris. How can you connect with others and activate your combined faith to move mountains? What Reverend Kathy has shared and Jackie is also, those are two huge examples. So how could we combine our faith to really tackle some of those collective mountains?
Well, I think it begins by, again, come back to the identity question, realizing that we are spirit. As spirit, this talk about oneness is more than just talk. We really are connected, and that there is a collective human consciousness that each of us is making a contribution toward. If I want to change a society, if I want to change or see change in life, my own life or other individuals' lives, I think it's important to remember that that which I am, that which I believe myself to be, is that which I am pouring into this collective. And for that reason, the clarity that each one of us has and the strength in our belief in who we are becomes crucially important. If we then believe ourselves to be spirit, and we believe ourselves to be one, then just look at how that opens up the portal through which, no matter where we are, this is at the root of silent unity, no matter where we are, no matter what any of us right now in this moment might be thinking about ourselves or other people, we are one. And we can impact. I love what James Dillett Freeman, who was, he's Unity's poet laureate, and for many years, more than I can count, was the director of Silent Unity. He said, what one heart cannot bear alone, 100 hearts can bear together in faith. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because we can move jointly together in unity in addressing these concerns that we may have about the external world. And I think first and foremost, it's what am I contributing right now in this moment? Am I contributing thoughts of harmony, peace, equality, love, unity? Or am I contributing thoughts of divisiveness, defensiveness, condemnatory judgment? And I've been in this movement all of my life, but I still have to say there are those moments that I'm not particularly proud to say, but true confessions here. There are those moments when I am contributing divisive thought, when I am contributing condemnatory judgment. So to become more aware of that, and then to open myself to realizing this unity I have with all people everywhere, and that is that life on this planet is the result of the collective consciousness of each and every one of us. So, and that's what I love about unity and silent unity, is that we can come together with this understanding, and that's where I think we're making a bigger difference in the world than we may ever be able to fully comprehend.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. I saw a comment in the chat that said that faith requires participation. Faith requires participation. So as we wrap up in our last few minutes together, Reverend Jacquie, Kathy, have you got any comments or thoughts on the ways in which we can participate together in our community and communal crises?
I do. Chris, as you were talking, I was reminded of the children's story Stone Soup, where the stranger came to town, knocked on the doors, you got any salt, you got any pepper, you got any root vegetables? And everybody's like, no. And so the stranger went to the middle of town, built a fire, set up the pot, and started to stir it. And it is, I believe, that stirring of the gift that called people to bring what they had and to add that to the mix. I think that we are all divine culinary experts that can stir up the gift of something great by just making room for people to bring what they have and know that it is valuable to that which we are co-creating together. And I think when people from wherever they are on the spectrum of faith, economics, politics, whatever it is, that they recognize that they are whole and complete and valuable to the story that is being told right here, right now. That's how our world starts to shift in directions that we can't even begin to imagine. So bring what you got. Bring who you are, do the spiritual hokey pokey, and put your whole self in and allow it to be so. And so we will allow it to be.
Thank you. Last comment, Reverend Jacquie.
It's such a great question. We live in a time where it is easier to connect with anyone on the planet than it ever has been before. And so regardless of whether you can leave your house or not, there are ways to connect with other people. And so I think, getting real clear about what is ours to do in the world. And it may be to be in prayer, to hold consciousness. We got to be real clear about what the doing is. The doing is all about the being. But when we take it into action, in my opinion, we follow what lights us up. right? We follow what inspires us and we contribute more of that to the world, whether it's through connecting to people online, whether we can go out into our local communities and breathe life into that which is inspiring to us. And we will connect and draw to us other people who are of that same inspiration. And that's how we begin to catch, a spiritual fire among us. And that right now is what we need more than ever, more than anything, is to find that spiritual fire and that connection that is within us and among us. The kingdom of God among us is in the space between us.
Yes. Yes. Powerful, powerful discussion. And one of the things I want to insert here is a little Silent Unity commercial. If you hadn't heard the good news that we are holding the high watch, we've always have held the high watch with and for you all. And we have restored our 24/7 live prayer support as of this World Day of Prayer. So when you find yourselves unable to hold the truth of who and what you are and need to borrow a cup of faith from Silent Unity, we are here for you. And I want to wrap up thanking our panelists, Reverend Kathy, Jackie, and Chris. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and taking the time to go deeper into our theme this year and provide your knowing and your experience and contribution to the ways in which we might move and have our being in a faith-forward way. So we are going to close knowing and affirming that in all things we are faithing, and in that faith we move mountains. For those that are watching, once again, if you didn't hear at the beginning of our time, you will be provided a link to this recording and all of our programming at the end of World Day of Prayer via your email. And I want to invite you all to join us again, same link, same back time, same back channel. You're going to use your same link to come back and join us at 7 p.m. for closing remarks and our closing concert as we wrap up World Day of Prayer. And that will be with Fred Albers and MV again tonight. So such a treat. And until then, my friends, we will be holding you in prayer. Oh, one more thing. All of the prayer requests that have come through in the chat, we will take those and add them to our vigil. And our vigil continues through 7 p.m. Central this evening. So thank you for your participation. Thank you, all of our panelists. Thank you for all of you giving us and loaning us your prayer consciousness. We know and affirm that it is moving mountains, and we are grateful. Until then, see you all later. Pray on good people, and bye for now.